So you want to catch more bass with Garmin LiveScope or another forward-facing sonar unit this fall? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a few of my favorite baits to target fall bass with forward-facing sonar coming up. What's up, guys, and thank you for tuning in to another video. I really appreciate it, and if you're new here, I appreciate you as well. Today, we're going to dive into some of my favorite baits to target fall bass using forward-facing sonar. Just a few of the standout baits that I've used that seem to produce more fish than others. So let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty. I sound so dumb. I'm done. Cut. We're done. Okay, I'm ready. Now that that's over with, I'm gonna dive right back in. Let's start with the first bait, and one of my favorite baits to target bass in the fall using Garmin LiveScope or other forward-facing sonars. And keep in mind, most of these baits are gonna be to target suspended fish specifically. So if you guys do wanna see how I target fish in the fall, fishing on bottom using Garmin LiveScope, leave a comment down below and maybe I'll get to that video. But today we're specifically going to talk about fishing for suspended fish, fish that are out chasing bait, roaming. So my first and favorite bait is going to be a jerkbait. There's a lot of different jerkbaits you can use. I have a handful that I like to throw, especially this time of the year. The first one being a Rapala Shadow Wrap. That's definitely my favorite bait. It's a big producer, catches a lot of fish, catches big fish. It's just a good all-around bait. I'm not going to tell you it's the best in every scenario, but it's a good all-around jerkbait. You can fish in cold water at the end of fall, fish in that warmer water when we're earlier on, and it seems to produce all the way through. Just a solid bait. Now I'm using this bait specifically targeting schools of fish that are out corralling bait, chasing. Often these fish are in pods, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30 fish, schools of fish chasing bait. And what I'm doing with this bait is I'm throwing at these schools of fish and I'm fishing it incredibly aggressively. I do not stop moving the bait hardly at all, maybe for half a second at most. I'm throwing this bait out past them and I'm just twitching it hard, long twitches all the way through the fish. I never stop it, and it seems like these fish that eat the jerkbait, if they're going to react, they react. But if you stop it and give them a chance to look at it, they're done. They'll follow the bait in, turn away from it. So I keep that bait moving nonstop. That's very, very important for all you guys who go out and fish a jerkbait in the fall. You got to keep that bait moving, or a lot of the time these fish aren't going to commit. Keep that bait going. Keep those fish fired up, and sometimes you can catch multiple fish out of a school if you can keep up with them. You're not always going to catch the biggest fish in the lake doing that, but you can definitely catch numbers and you can catch quality fish. And when I say quality, I mean up to that 4, 5, maybe 6 pound range. But those bigger fish seem to elude me when I'm chasing those groups. Now that may just be me and the bodies of water I fish, but personally I don't catch a lot of big fish out of these schools. But that jerkbait puts a hurting on the schools of fish, especially those 16-inch fish, 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds, all the way up to 3 pound fish. That jerkbait will get it done. Okay, I'm about to dive into my second bait, but if you guys haven't already and you're enjoying the content, getting some value out of it, go over, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if you do, turn on that notification bell so you get my videos right when they're posted. I'd really appreciate it. We're constantly trying to put out more videos for you guys and just get the best content out for you possible. But I'm going to go ahead, dive into my second bait. And it's actually a couple of baits, but another type of bait I like to target these open water schooling fish with is going to be a topwater. Now there's several different types of fish, or different types of baits that I use on these fish, but these fish are going to be a little bit different than your jerkbait fish. So I'm targeting these fish with a variety of topwaters. I think it really depends on the day, but these fish are not going to be set up like the jerkbait fish. They're going to be set up higher in the water column. You may see these fish 1 to 5 foot down, and they could be in deep water, could be in shallow water. But the key is these fish are high in the water column, way up in the water column. so you can throw that top water at them. A few of the baits I like to throw are things that I think would work, especially, you know, the walking bait, that one works. I've caught them on buzz baits before. I know that one works for sure. I have not caught them on this whopper plopper actually, but it's one that I'm going to test out this fall. My intuition says this bait's really going to work, and for one key reason: you need a loud bait. It seems like when these fish are up high, they're chasing bait around. You want to have a loud presentation that's going to draw those fish away from the school of bait that they're already chasing. That's why I said the buzz bait. I'll throw that whopper plopper because that's got a big loud kick in the water. When I'm throwing a walking bait, I want that knocking bait. That's a one knocker. But I want to throw something loud to draw these fish away, because like I said, they're in a group, but they're already focused in on a ball of bait. So if you can make some extra noise, something to get those fish's attention and draw them off the school of bait, I think that really helps. Not that they won't come up and hit a quiet topwater, and maybe you may even need that if you're fishing some of the cleaner bodies of water. But in most of the fisheries that I fished and the ways that I've caught them on topwater with LiveScope, I want a louder bait to draw those fish away, especially when those fish start getting 4 and 5 foot down from the surface. You gotta have something loud to draw them up to the top. But that bait can be a killer to catch those fish. And sometimes when you're catching smaller fish on the jerkbait, you can actually pick up that topwater and get some of those bigger fish to react for some reason. I don't know what it is, but those, you know, 3, 4, 5 pound fish may react more in comparison to catching 16 to 18 inch fish a lot of the time on the jerkbait. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, before we move on to the third bait, you guys go down in the comments, leave me a comment on your favorite bait to throw on LiveScope in the fall. Really curious. These are the baits that I figured out, but I'd love to hear you guys' input. So let's dive into that third bait. So my third favorite bait is gonna be a Senko. Just a wacky rig Senko. You can throw it Texas, or not Texas rig, but weightless as well. I prefer to throw it wacky just so I get that little bit better hookup, and I can throw it on a spinning rod so I can be quick, get that bait out there, and it's, you know, it's easier to throw in the wind and things like that. Just a little bit more ease throwing it on that spinning rod, especially because most of the time I'm throwing it in open water. That Senko can be a killer. Like I said, I throw it wacky rigged, weightless. That bait can be a killer, but I throw this bait in a different situation than I throw the previous two baits. So the previous two baits, I'm targeting schools of fish, chasing bait, and I'm not going to say this bait doesn't work in that scenario. It just may not be the most efficient, but I'm using that Senko to target cruising fish out in open water that may be in search of bait. They're out there cruising, looking for bait to chase, but they're not necessarily active corralling bait, things like that. It seems like single fish, things like that. It works a little bit better on those fish, especially when it gets flat calm. These fish will be out there, they can see well, there's nothing breaking up that light penetration, and they can see, and there's something about that wacky rig that you just throw it out there, let that thing flutter down, and for whatever reason, just like up shallow, these fish tick. It's a really good option. It's something to keep in mind, especially if you have tough conditions. Maybe if these fish are getting pressured a lot, you can pull it out, but it seems to really shine when these fish are not targeting bait, specifically because it is very hard to get a weightless bait down to a group of fish that are chasing bait. They're moving so much that it really seems to shine, like I said, on those single fish that are not necessarily moving a lot. They're just out cruising, looking for bait to eat. Okay, now time for my fourth and final bait. And this bait's gonna go in a different category, because this bait is something you're only gonna wanna use if you're out chasing big fish. I'm gonna say fish at least 3 pounds or bigger, but probably 4 pounds plus. Now you could downgrade this bait, but really, this is a bait I use when I'm out chasing big fish in the fall, and it's probably one of my favorites, to be honest, and that is going to be a glide bait. At the moment, I'm pretty much exclusively throwing this Arashi, Storm Arashi glide. It has been my favorite. I have some other ones I'm playing with, but I'm not confident enough in them to talk to you guys about them yet. So for now, that Storm Arashi glide is going to be my favorite. But as I said, this goes in a different category because I'm using this bait specifically to chase after big fall fish. Now the trick is, these big fish in the fall can get tough. Just no way around it. These fish can be brutal to catch. They've been beat up. You know, we've been out there throwing at them all summer. They may be in similar areas, but they're hard to catch. They're hard to make react. And there's something about that glide bait that seems to make these fish, you know, brings out that core instinct in fish and makes them react. Now, I'm not going to tell you every fish is going to eat. I'm not even going to tell you half the fish are going to eat, but that seems like it's been the bait that has gave me the best opportunity to get a big fish to eat when I can't get them to eat one of these other baits. It's that big profile, and a big fish will come up and eat it if you can get them the right presentation. That's the key part. Now, I don't necessarily recommend the average guy go out right now and start testing with that glide bait. It's really tough. It is the hardest time of year to learn how to throw this bait. No doubt about it. These fish are out there, and these big fish could be 5 foot from the surface, and some of the lakes I fish, they're down as deep as 20 feet from the surface. Now, you can get that bait down to those fish at any depth. You just got to throw it out and let it sink. But it is really hard to learn how to make these fish react, and if you don't already know how to make them react while using the LiveScope unit, you're going to have a really tough time getting those fish to commit to a bait. You're going to get frustrated, and even if you do know what you're doing, you're going to have a whole lot of fish follow this bait to the boat. I mean, I'm talking, if you want to go out and throw this bait, you're going to spend all day chasing fish that are 4 pounds plus, and if you have a phenomenal day, I think you're going to get 5 bites. I'm going out, I'll throw this thing all day, and it is not uncommon to get 1, 2, 3 fish to commit in a day. 7, 8, 9 hours to get that many fish to commit. So we're talking 1 in 20 fish may actually come up and commit to this bait. And with the size and how it's set up, you may only hook 1 of those fish. Now, you may hook 5. I don't know. But it's a really good bait for you guys that want to go out and just hunt heads all day, go trophy fish. It can catch them. If you know where they're at, you know where they live, that is the bait right now to go throw on them. Now, there's a few other things that may work also, but that is a bait that I can guarantee you guys can go out and catch fish if you put the time in. I'm just not guaranteeing that it's going to be fun, because it can be absolutely draining to go out and watch these fish chase your bait to the boat and not react. But when you get that one to react, it feels really, really good. It's just, that is definitely my favorite bait. I go out anymore and I just want to chase giants. That bait's the one to do it on. That Storm Arashi Glide catches them. And it's a good budget bait, which comes in right at like $35. So a really good beginner glide to buy also. And it works in the summer. There you got it. That's my favorite baits to throw using forward-facing sonar in the fall. Those are the best baits that I can give you guys. Those are the baits when I go to any given body of water this time of the year, that's where I start. I have all 4 of those tied on. I go out and I may test with some other baits and fine tune from there. But those are the fish that those are the baits that I know catch fish during the fall. They're really good baits, and I hope that you guys can take some of these baits and catch fish for yourselves. I know it can be really difficult, and it is a tough time of year to learn LiveScope. I'd say by far, fall has been the toughest time of year for me to catch fish using the forward-facing sonar unit. These fish just can act finicky. They don't always want to eat, and you either have to fish really, really fast or slow down, as you can see from the baits I have here. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if you do, turn on the notification bell so you get my videos right when they're posted. But I think that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.